Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Have you felt like you're spinning in an endless cycle, like you're trapped in the same routine, yearning for something to break this pattern? That feeling is not just a fleeting discomfort, it's the soul's deeper cry for renewal, a transformation that only God can fulfill. Your restless spirit and longing for change are signs that God is stirring something within you, a yearning for something more, something divine. Have you ever wondered if the turmoil and struggles you face are actually the prelude to a new chapter orchestrated by God Himself? You may feel weighed down by disappointments, dreams that seem delayed, and circumstances that appear beyond repair. But what if these very moments of pain are being used to prepare you for an extraordinary breakthrough, one that will elevate your life to heights you never imagined? The good news is this: God is working behind the scenes, ready to renew your existence. He's not distant, He's right there beside you, shaping every circumstance for your benefit, even those moments that seem dark and heavy. As Lewis believed, the greatest transformations often occur in the silence of our struggles. And just as clay must be molded by pressure to take shape, God is molding your life with each situation you face, crafting a future that holds His purpose and His promises. You may not see the whole picture now, but He is the master artist, drawing out a new season for you, a season where His blessings and grace will unfold in ways beyond your understanding. Today, I want to reveal 10 signs that God is quietly, yet powerfully, working to elevate your life to new heights. When these signs appear, recognize them as His whispers, gently telling you that your story isn't over. The loneliness, the doubts, the yearning, all are part of His grand design to bring you closer to Him and into a life filled with renewed hope and purpose. He hasn't forgotten you, He's preparing you for something greater. So, if you find yourself in a season of hardship or a moment of doubt, remember this truth: no adversity is eternal, and every trial has an expiration date. It's not about the difficulty of the journey, but about the beauty of what God is crafting through it. Think about the pain you're facing right now. Maybe it's a lost opportunity, a broken relationship, or the fear of never being enough. God uses these very struggles to shape your character, deepen your faith, and build you into the person He created you to be. As Lewis insightfully shared, we are what we believe. We are so believe that you are not just passing through these trials aimlessly, you are being refined, like gold, for a higher purpose. God finishes what He starts, and if He has sustained you through every valley, He will surely complete what concerns you, leading you to a life overflowing with His peace, joy, and fulfillment. He is not just bringing you out of the storm, He's guiding you into a brighter, more meaningful existence where your deepest desires align with His will. If you're new to this journey or have yet to subscribe to the channel, I encourage you to take this step now. Join a community that understands the struggles and the triumphs, a place where your faith can find nourishment and strength. You might be feeling the weight of life's challenges right now, but don't journey through it alone. Let's walk this path together, finding hope and encouragement as we uncover the signs that God is working within us. If this message speaks to the battles in your heart or the longing in your spirit, please like and comment below. Your voice matters, and your story could be the very encouragement someone else needs to hold on to their faith. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into recognizing God's hand in the midst of every twist and turn, every tear and triumph, knowing that He is drawing you toward a destiny that is far greater than the struggles you're facing now. Let me hear a blessed from you all. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Life as a Christian is not a straight path paved with ease. Even Christ Himself, the epitome of perfection, endured immense suffering. But when the road seems rocky and the sky heavy with storm clouds, ask yourself, what is God preparing me for? What new heights or depths is He calling me toward? Every struggle, every closed door is part of a divine orchestration, molding and refining you." Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. These seasons are not random, they are purposeful, unfolding like the turning pages of a book." Yet transformation is rarely a quick change of pace or a sudden burst of clarity, rather. It's a journey. It can span days, months, or even years, a gradual unfolding that requires patience and faith. Lewis likened this process to a house under construction. God does not merely mend the leaks or add some fresh paint. He knocks down walls, builds new floors, and creates something entirely different. The discomfort and unease we feel during these changes are signs of deeper renovations within us, where God is crafting something far greater than we can imagine. But how often do we resist these changes, clinging to comfort instead of embracing transformation? Are we so busy looking for immediate answers that we miss God's patient work in the background? Some of us may not recognize God's subtle hand in transitions. We may overlook the signs that He is at work. But if you quiet your soul and look closely, you'll see the breadcrumbs of His presence, pointing toward a divine reformation. In those moments when life feels uncertain, remember that God is always preparing before He elevates. The process may be slow, the change might be hard to see, but trust that He is reshaping your life to align with His higher purpose. To help you discern His handiwork, consider these 10 signs that show how God is sculpting your life for something better. Obstacles and barriers are inevitable. Have you ever found yourself in a moment when the path seemed impassable, wondering why challenges arise even when you're striving to walk in faith? Remember Psalm 23 verse 1, where David declares, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." This is a promise of God's sufficiency, yet we must ponder deeper. C.S. Lewis insightfully wrote, "God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way." What if the struggles you face are not signs of lack or divine absence, but a divine invitation to grow? Much like the Israelites wandering in the desert, we too may experience times when God seems distant and provision feels sparse. Yet, this is not God's way of abandoning us. It is His way of inviting us to step into a greater maturity and trust. Could it be that when God withdraws the comfort we've grown used to, He is gently pushing us toward deeper reliance on Him? It is easy to confuse divine silence with divine disapproval, but sometimes silence is an invitation to listen more closely. Lewis once wrote, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." If you find yourself struggling through adversity, take heart. These moments are God's way of speaking to you, reshaping you, and leading you toward a season of blessing and growth. Challenges are not punishments but pathways to liberation. As God seeks to release you from any comfort that keeps you from your full potential, ask yourself, could the very discomfort you feel now be the catalyst for a greater transformation? So, when faced with obstacles, cling to faith and continue moving forward. God's direction may not always come with ease, but it is sure, guiding you toward a place of promise. Let your worries fall into the hands of Jesus. And remember that it's not the presence of suffering but how you perceive it that shapes your path. Suffering, as Lewis suggests, is often God's way of leading us back to the truth that all things work for our growth, ultimately shaping us into the person He's called us to be. Feeling unsettled while living within the walls of your comfort zone can be disorienting. That restlessness that stirs within, like an itch that cannot be scratched, signals that all meant to propel you toward a life richer in meaning and purpose. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "If I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world." This inner longing, that restlessness for more, is a clue you are created for something greater. It's as if your soul knows a truth that your mind hasn't yet grasped, that God's calling for you surpasses the limitations of your comfort and routine. God often allows this discomfort to break our complacency, nudging us towards transformation. Think of it as the wind that nudges a bird to the edge of its nest, urging it to spread its wings and soar. Are you being called to something beyond the ordinary? Perhaps your life seems stable, a dream job, a loving family, financial security, yet still, an unexplainable void remains. This emptiness is not a flaw in your character, nor a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the voice of God, guiding you to seek higher ground. This call is aligned with the message of Romans 12 verse 2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That renewal of mind involves stepping out in faith, being willing to let go of what is good for what is great, to lay aside the familiar in favor of the extraordinary God has in store. Consider this: why would God place such discontent in your heart if not to draw you closer to Him, to something greater than yourself? It's a chance to break free from the mold, to seek His will more deeply, and to transform not just your circumstances but your very being. Just as C.S. Lewis said, God doesn't want something from us, He simply wants us. When you sense that stirring, that holy unrest, approach it with reverence. Instead of resisting, lean and ask God what He is preparing you for, and be open to the remarkable journey that lies ahead. God will orchestrate divine encounters to lead your journey. In the intricate tapestry of life, God interweaves the threads of destiny by placing specific people in our path, each contributing to His greater purpose for us. These individuals, sometimes called destiny collaborators, might not come with a sign or grand entrance. They may already be woven into your story, as a mentor who believes in your potential, a friend who listens without judgment, or even a stranger whose presence nudges you toward growth. How often do we overlook these connections, unaware that God is subtly guiding our steps through them? C.S. Lewis once pondered the power of divine alignment, suggesting that there are no ordinary people. He challenges us to recognize that each person who crosses our path could be part of God's design. Do you see the encounters in your life as mere coincidences, or could they be intentional whispers from God, urging you to step into your calling? As Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us, all things work together for good to those who love God, including these seemingly chance encounters that are, in reality, divine appointments. Consider the Apostle Paul. After his transformation on the road to Damascus, he wasn't immediately embraced by the early Christian community, but God provided Barnabas, a bridge to the apostles and a pillar of support in Paul's mission to spread the gospel. How often do we find ourselves on the precipice of a new chapter, fearful of stepping into the unknown, only to have someone appear at just the right time? As Lewis said, you are never too old to set a new goal or to dream a new dream. Each encounter is a door, and every collaborator a key that God uses to unlock new paths and chapters in our lives. And even when these connections seem strained or unlikely, remember Proverbs 21, verse 1, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He directs it wherever He pleases. It is God who softens hearts, transforms skepticism into support, and turns hesitation into encouragement." So when you find yourself unsure of the relationships in your life, or questioning the timing of those who walk beside you, reflect on the possibility that God is orchestrating divine encounters, nudging you forward to the dreams and purposes He has set before you. God will renew your vision, stirring fresh passion within your heart. In the realm of spiritual growth, there often comes a time when our perspectives become clouded, much like the early morning mist that obscures a beautiful landscape. And just as that mist lifts with the rising sun, so too can God bring clarity and renewed passion into our lives. But how often do we resist change, holding on to old habits, relationships, and fears that no longer serve us? It's said that the greatest obstacle to our transformation is not a lack of knowledge, but an unwillingness to see differently. C.S. Lewis once wrote in Mere Christianity, "It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird. It would be a jolly sight harder for it to learn to fly. While remaining in an egg, how often do we find ourselves clinging to the comfort of the shell, fearing the unknown?" The transformative power of God is one that not only cracks open our shell but encourages us to take flight. When God renews our minds, as Romans 12 verse 2 exhorts, we are invited to see the world and ourselves through a divine lens. This shift in perspective isn't merely an intellectual exercise, but a deep change that reaches into the core of who we are. Abraham's journey illustrates this truth. His willingness to part ways with Lot was more than just a physical separation. It was a letting go of anything that hindered the fulfillment of God's promise. C.S. Lewis might ask, are you willing to separate from what holds you back, even if it feels like tearing away a piece of your very self sometimes? our deepest attachments must be pruned for us to bear greater fruit, much like a vine that needs to be trimmed for it to flourish. Consider the areas of your life where God is nudging you to release, to shift, to see differently. This renewal is not passive, it demands both our surrender and our active participation. We are not called to remain stagnant, like a stream blocked by debris. Rather, we are to let God's current flow freely through us, carrying away what has stifled our growth and nourishing the seeds of new life and passion. When we allow God to refine us, He not only renews our vision but also ignites a fire within us. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Psalm 51 verse 10 becomes a plea for a life transformed, a call for God to illuminate our gifts, to awaken talents that have long been dormant, and to help us step boldly into our calling. And as Lewis reminds us, the process of transformation may be uncomfortable, like the breaking of a shell, but it is only then that we can discover the joy of taking flight. So, are you ready to let go, to embrace God's renewal, and to soar? Embracing the unforeseen, the path of new opportunities. Life often unfolds in ways we cannot predict, revealing opportunities that challenge our comfort zones. As you grow and align yourself with God's purpose, you may find that He leads you to doors you never anticipated, places that don't always align with your personal desires or plans. How often do we hold tightly to our expectations, hoping that they align perfectly with God's plan? Yet God's wisdom exceeds our understanding, as Jeremiah 29 verse 11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." It is in these moments of surrender that we find strength, not in forcing our own way, but in trusting the divine narrative He is writing for us. Consider C.S. Lewis's words on pain and growth. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. Could it be that these new opportunities, often appearing amidst discomfort or disruption, are God's voice calling us to awaken to a higher purpose? Like Esther, who courageously stepped into her role as queen, not for personal gain but to serve her people, we are called to see beyond our immediate circumstances. Such opportunities may not come dressed in the way we imagined. They may challenge us, ask more of us, and even demand that we let go of what feels safe and familiar. But remember, God never moves you laterally, He elevates you. As Proverbs 3 verse 5 to 6 counsels, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." Lewis often spoke of faith as an ever-unfolding journey, where every obstacle and opportunity we encounter is like a chapter in a story God is intricately weaving. Have you ever paused to ask, what role might God be calling you to step into through these new chances? Are you willing to see them as platforms to glorify God rather than merely advance yourself? Embracing these opportunities is about seeing your life as part of a grander, divine tapestry, one where every door opened or closed is part of a journey meant to deepen your faith, build your character, and bring you into closer alignment with God's will. In trusting the journey, you'll find that God's whispers guide you, His voice sustains you, and His shouts awaken you to a life that tells a story far beyond what you ever envisioned, one of hope, purpose, and undeniable joy. Discovering tranquility amid life's uncertainties. Amidst the swirling chaos of life, where uncertainty tries to unsettle your soul, peace emerges not as an absence of problems, but as a resilient presence anchored in something greater. How is it that one can stand firm in the eye of a storm, untouched by the howling winds of doubt and the relentless waves of fear? The answer lies in a peace that is not crafted by human effort, but given as a gift of divine assurance that transcends every human understanding. As Philippians 4 verse 7 reminds us, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." It is this peace that protects your inner world, even when everything around you threatens to crumble. But let's pause and consider, have you ever experienced a season where clarity felt miles away, and all that surrounded you were shadows of uncertainty? C.S. Lewis speaks to this feeling with remarkable insight. He once shared, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else." Just as the rising sun casts light upon everything it touches, God's peace illuminates our lives, enabling us to see clearly through the fog of the unknown. Even when life's pathway seems unclear, this peace serves as a guiding light, offering clarity in ways logic fails to provide. Are the changes you're facing not adding up? Are the transitions in your life leaving you bewildered? It may be a sign that God is redirecting you toward a greater purpose, one you may not fully comprehend now but are gently being led into. Imagine this peace as a constant, quiet voice that assures you of God's unwavering presence, a presence that whispers of a future woven with hope, even when your current reality is filled with doubts. Perhaps the new road God is paving before you does not seem appealing at first, but within your heart stirs a steady confidence, a certainty that is not of this world. This is the essence of God's peace, a profound sense of tranquility that, while it may not erase the storms of life, fortifies you with the strength to walk through them unafraid. As the psalmist declares, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" Psalm 27 verse 1. Peace in God is transformative. It molds you, redirects your path, and opens up possibilities that you never envisioned. This is not simply a fleeting calmness, but a steadfast assurance that no matter the depth of the unknown or the ferocity of life's battles, you are led by a God whose plans for you surpass every uncertainty. Are you ready to trust that the peace which surpasses understanding is not just a feeling but a powerful force guiding you to unexpected, blessed horizons? The unseen strength of faith in God. Have you ever felt your faith stretch thin, like a fragile thread in the midst of a storm? Trusting God requires a heart willing to endure, and in life's darkest valleys, that trust is tested, often refined like gold in the fire. C.S. Lewis once pondered the nature of pain and its relationship to faith, saying, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny indeed. Faith is not shaped by comfort, but by resistance. It is not built in the ease of the calm waters, but in the tempests of uncertainty." Consider the story of Joseph, a young man destined for greatness, yet cast aside by those closest to him. Betrayed by his brothers, Joseph could have let bitterness cloud his vision. He could have asked, "Where is God in my suffering?" Yet, instead of questioning God's presence, he embraced his promise. In those moments of despair, where do you turn? It's easy to trust when life is smooth, but when everything falls apart, that's when true faith emerges. Joseph's path was laden with betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, but each trial was a step closer to God's greater plan. Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." It is through adversity that Joseph's faith was fortified. What challenges do you face that might seem overwhelming, even unbearable? Like Joseph, each struggle is an invitation to grow deeper in faith, to cling to God's promise with an unshakable trust. Reflect on C.S. Lewis's insight: "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains." Joseph's journey is a testament to this truth. His setbacks became the megaphone through which God shaped his destiny, not just for his own sake, but for a nation in need. The question isn't whether life will challenge your faith, because it will, but whether you will allow those challenges to draw you closer to God or drive you away. Will you, like Joseph, choose to see beyond the suffering to the sovereignty of God at work? Psalm 27 verse 1 provides this assurance: "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" This was Joseph's anchor, and it can be yours too. So, when life feels heavy and your path seems filled with obstacles, remember that faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about trusting the one who does. God is building your faith with every trial and every tear, shaping you into something far stronger, far more radiant than you can imagine. He is leading you toward a future that reveals his glory, and in every setback, there is a hidden strength waiting to be discovered. Keep your faith unshakable, and let God transform your trials into triumphs. Transformation often feels like the winding path through a dark forest, where branches of doubt and uncertainty tug at our faith. Yet, God orchestrates even the most chaotic moments to lead us into a symphony of renewal and divine restoration. Joel 2 verse 25-26 is a beacon of hope. Amid loss, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. You will have plenty to eat until you are full, and you will praise the name of the Lord your God. This promise reminds us that no matter what has been stripped away, our time, joy, or sense of peace, God is not only capable of restoring it, but doing so in abundance. Can you imagine the depth of peace when you are restored beyond what you could fathom? Like Job, who saw his latter days become greater than the former, or the psalmist's gentle assurance that he leads me beside still waters, Psalm 23 verse 2. This restoration is not just a return to what was, but an elevation to something greater. C.S. Lewis eloquently puts it, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Have you ever considered that your greatest pain may be shaping the vessel for your greatest blessings? Sometimes, God uses brokenness to make room for His overflowing favor. Lewis also likened our spiritual awakening to sunlight breaking through the fog. I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else. Could it be that God is not just restoring what was taken, but also transforming how you see every aspect of your life? He will rebuild the ruins of your soul, filling you with an abundance of peace, joy, and love, a reflection of Hebrews 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. What do you see now through the lens of faith? When you trust that God's hand is in your restoration, even the darkest nights give way to mornings filled with renewed hope. Embrace this journey not as a return to the past, but as a divine metamorphosis that shapes you for something far greater than you could imagine. Every scar becomes a testimony, every tear a seed for new joy, and in this process, God's faithfulness will transform your brokenness into beauty. As you walk the path of faith, expect to see God's presence unfold like a trail of guiding lights in the darkness. Life is rarely a straight path, and while we might crave certainty, God's guidance often emerges in subtle yet profound ways. How often have you found yourself at a crossroads, desperate for clarity? For God is not a God of disorder but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14 verse 33. These words remind us that, even in our confusion, God orchestrates order, peace, and purpose. Like the flicker of a lighthouse over turbulent seas, these divine signals can come through moments of unexplainable clarity, an unexpected word from a friend, a sermon that echoes your thoughts, or a dream that stirs your spirit. They are signposts from God, nudging you toward His will. Reflect on Gideon, that timid hero who trembled at the thought of leading Israel against their enemies. In his hesitation, he sought tangible signs from God, a fleece wet with dew, while the ground stayed dry, and then the opposite. Why did Gideon seek such clear confirmation? Perhaps his fears mirror our own doubts and insecurities, the moments when we long to see, touch, and know that God is truly with us. And yet, despite the requests, God met Gideon where he was, patiently confirming His presence and call. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Psalm 27 verse 1, a promise of divine strength that transforms fear into faith. But what about you? What signs is God placing before you, urging you to take that next step? C.S. Lewis, in his deep spiritual reflections, reminds us of a truth that cuts through our deepest yearning. God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. Every sign, every whisper, every nudge of the Spirit is not merely a coincidence, but God pulling you closer, guiding you into deeper communion with Him. It's as though He leaves a trail of love notes in your life, confirmations that He is not only present but actively involved. To see these signs is to acknowledge that God's approval and guidance are woven into the very fabric of your journey, leading you toward a greater purpose, a life infused with divine meaning and unshakable peace. 10. Cultivating a heart that burns for God. There's a profound mystery in the way God's love reshapes our desires. The closer we draw to Him, the more our hearts are stirred with an uncontainable passion to seek His ways. But have you ever wondered why this love is so all-consuming? C.S. Lewis once said, God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from Himself because it is not there. There is no such thing. God is not just the source of love, He is love itself. and in Him our restless hearts find their home. The Apostle John reminds us, we love because He first loved us. 1 John 4 verse 19. This means that our capacity to love is not from our striving but from His abundant grace. It's His love that ignites the fire within, compelling us to respond in faithful obedience. Imagine being so enthralled by God's goodness that each step you take, every choice you make, reflects your desire to please Him. But obedience to God is not a checklist of rules, it's a journey of the heart. Psalm 143 verse 10 prays, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God, may your good spirit lead me on level ground." Here we see obedience not as mere duty but as a deep yearning to align our will with God's, a longing to follow His Spirit's guidance. C.S. Lewis speaks of this surrender as a transformative process, much like a journey to find your truest self in God. When you feel an unwavering urge to live in a way that pleases Him, even when the path is arduous, it is God at work within you, refining you to be more like Christ. As Lewis poignantly observed, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. So, where do you find yourself in this journey? Are you willing to let God's transformative love change not only your actions but your very identity? Embrace this molding of your spirit, allowing God's love to reshape your thoughts, desires, and character. Understand that the trials you face are not just obstacles but opportunities for God to mold you into the person He envisioned, one whose heart beats in rhythm with Christ's. And, as C.S. Lewis wrote, the Son of God became a man to enable men to become sons of God. Let this divine reshaping lead you to live a life marked by deep joy, profound love, and a faith that shines brightly in a world searching for hope. Surrender to His hand, trust the journey, and let your obedience be the echo of His endless love. Renewed prayer of surrender and trust. Father in heaven, in the silence of this moment, I come before your infinite grace and acknowledge that you are the author and perfecter of my life. The vastness of your mercy shields me daily, and your gentle guidance paves the way toward a brighter tomorrow. With a heart overflowing with gratitude, I praise you, Lord, for all the ways you mold and refine me, often beyond what my eyes can perceive. How often do we fail to recognize the shaping of our path? Help me see your divine hand, especially when the journey seems unclear. Lead me through this season of transformation with unwavering trust in your purpose and timing. Even when life shifts, and I find myself in unfamiliar territory, grant me the courage to walk through each door with faith, knowing that with every closed door, a greater one is set to open. I am reminded of C.S. Lewis's words, God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way. What lessons are you teaching me through this season? Let me not shrink away from adversity but embrace it as Christ did from His birth to His ultimate sacrifice on the cross. Let His life be my example, a life marked not by ease, but by perseverance, justice, and unwavering love, even in the face of overwhelming trials. Lord, help me develop a heart that mirrors Christ's, one that rejoices in plenty, but also finds contentment in scarcity. For if I have you, Lord, I have all that I need. Your love is the sweetness that for me. Above all, teach me to endure, to stand firm when the winds howl and the storms rage, for it is in these trials that your faithfulness becomes most evident. Like clay in the potter's hands, shape me, refine me, and mold me according to your perfect plan. And as I wait on you, may I find peace in the assurance that your timing is always right, and your plans are always good. In your presence I place every fear, every worry, every hope. Thank you, Father, for hearing the whispers of my heart. In Jesus' holy name, I surrender all. Amen.